The Cavs got greased in the finals this year, and there's a good chance LeBron's taking his talents elsewhere. I'm Big Saul, and I'm going to go over wild card free agent destinations that have the cap space and the personnel that might interest LeBron in signing with them. I'm going to break down potential trades and signings that could go along with signing LeBron that will make his free agent destination more suitable. But keep in mind, these teams are still long shots for LeBron actually going to them, and no one except LeBron knows what he's going to do in his free agency. That being said, let's get into the video.
Yeah! For the first time, it's going down history, baby. New 3-6 Mafia, featuring 8-Ball and MJG, Young Buck. It's a Tennessee thing. We gotta stay.
The teams I'm about to speak about will have an easier time freeing up cap space than the teams mentioned in my video about why 80% of the league can't sign LeBron. You can check that video out in the upper right hand corner of this video. These teams will make some very interesting lineups if they got LeBron. These teams are the Jazz, Timberwolves, the Rockets, and the Pacers. The Pacers have the most cap space of these teams with only $75 million in guaranteed contracts next year, and the Timberwolves have the least cap space with $87 million in guaranteed contracts. Now let's get into the specifics for what team would need to do what in order to sign LeBron. I've tried to stay away from sign and trade deals since most would leave the Cavs in a terrible situation they wouldn't want to be in. That being said, there is one team I will mention later that I couldn't leave out. Starting out with our first team. The Timberwolves have $87 million in guaranteed contracts next year. They will need to find a way to trade Gorgie Deng, Cole Aldrich, and Taj Gibson. Combined, they're making a total of $38 million next year. This will free up space for LeBron and leave enough money to seek out 3-and-D players to put around him. They could even try to trade Jeff Teague, Wiggins, and a draft pick or multiple draft picks for a star point guard such as Kemba Walker and a contract like Nicholas Batum to make the salaries match. This trade would give the Hornets the young potential star they want, and they could move Kemba Walker, who has said he wants to play for a winner and who was also on the last year of his contract, while the Timberwolves get a 3-and-D player for the bench unit and a bona fide scorer and shooter at the point guard position. And if they find a way to sign Trevor Ariza, that would give them a starting five of Kemba Walker, Jimmy Butler, Trevor Ariza, LeBron, and Karl Anthony Towns. That's a pretty solid starting five and financially very doable. My only problem with this team will be the bench players, the system, and the coach. For a team like this, I would need Coach Tibbs to be fired and a new coach brought in to introduce a system like Golden State's. An offense that is built around cutting and working for the best shots. To ease some of the pressure on LeBron, they can have him facilitating from post-ups at the elbow instead of having him drive and kick as much. That way he can work to his spots off ball and use his amazing court vision and passing ability along with well-timed cuts and off-ball screens to get his teammates easy buckets. They could also run the same action with Karl Anthony Towns with LeBron, Butler, Ariza, and Walker cutting. With these players on the Timberwolves, there's really no hole in the offense, but like I said, there would need to be a system change. You can let LeBron run the LeBron system and run everything through him, or you can let him dissect the defense with passing so he doesn't need to focus as much on scoring. And with the decrease of pressure from not bearing the scoring and facilitating load, he can recommit to his defense and really set the tone for the team. For LeBron, this will mean his assists, rebound, and turnover averages might fall, while his already amazing efficiency, steals, and blocks will surely rise due to him getting better looks and better team defense. LeBron playing off ball means the team is more reliant on system and each other instead of just LeBron. But that's it for the Timberwolves. Let's move on to the second team. The Jazz are another team that could really make things shake in free agency if they get LeBron. They currently have $85 million in guaranteed contracts, and 7 of those contracts are expiring after the 2018-2019 season. Their first move would need to be not re-signing Jonas Jerebko, who would make over $4 million next season. Then they would need to find a trade partner for Alec Burks, who's making $12 million next season. Ideally, they would be able to move him without sacrificing picks, but a few picks might be needed in the pursuit of LeBron. At this point, they'll have around $35 million in cap space. Adding LeBron would put them right at the cap limit. Now this is where things can get interesting. With 5 contracts that are expiring, Utah can make some major moves to get better players to put around LeBron. For example, the Jazz can trade the expiring contracts of Dante Exum, Dabo Cephalosha, and FK Udo in exchange for Luol Deng and Kyle Kuzma. That gives the Lakers an extra $20 million to work with for their 2019 free agency, and the Jazz get a young scoring power forward for their roster that can also shoot the long ball at an efficient rate. That will give the Jazz a lineup of Donovan Mitchell, Joe Ingles, LeBron, Kuzma, and Rudy Gobert, with Jay Crowder and Ricky Rubio coming off the bench. Or you could bring Kuzma off the bench and have Ricky Rubio starting instead with LeBron LeBron playing at the 4 and Ingles at the 3. There's a lot you can do with this team. I'm not worried about coaching as I see Quinn Snyder's a good coach, but I am worried about the players they would sign for the bench. At this point, the Jazz have no cap space for significant signings, so the move would be to sign veteran free agents to the minimum contracts or trading their last expiring contracts for decent bench players. But as I said with the Timberwolves, and really this goes for all the teams in this video, there will be a need for an equal opportunity offense that looks for the best shot and everyone touches the ball. Turning Donovan Mitchell into a poor man's Kyrie Irving is not the way to go for this team. When it's your turn, my turn, it's too easy for the defense to counter. And speaking of defense, I think this team has the ability to be one of the best defensive teams in the league. Depending on their roster acquisitions, they could have a lockdown defensive unit. They could even try signing a Trevor Ariza or a Gerald Green to give them even more defensive shooting off the bench. But I cannot stress this enough, LeBron needs to be a cog in the machine. He can be a pretty big cog, but he should not be the entire machine. This is the part of LeBron's career where he needs to let other guys bear more of the load. He can still score, facilitate, and be LeBron, but he needs to focus more on defense, cutting without the ball, and being a great leader. Now let's go to the third team. The Rockets are one of the most talked about teams when it comes to LeBron and free agency, and for good reason. The Rockets are currently looking at $78 million in guaranteed contracts next year. If they re-sign CP3 to the max, they'll be looking at $113 million in guaranteed contracts. And since Capella is most likely getting a max deal, they would also have to pay him around $25 million. Not to mention they have to re-sign Trevor Ariza. The good thing is that the Rockets have bird rights on all three of those players, so they can go over the salary cap to re-sign them. This is the way Houston gets LeBron. First, it will require LeBron to opt in for his player option for this year's contract. Next, it will require Houston to send a lot of assets to the Cavs, the biggest of these assets being Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, and multiple draft picks. And in return, the Houston Rockets will get LeBron James. This way, Houston can re-sign their free agents of CP3, Trevor Ariza, and Clint Capella. That would give them a starting lineup of CP3, James Harden, Trevor Ariza, LeBron James, and Clint Capella, with Gerald Green and Ryan Anderson coming off the bench. Depending on who they could sign to fill out those extra roster spots, that team could really be a great team and could really match up well against the Warriors in the playoffs. Another way for the Rockets to acquire LeBron would be sending Ryan Anderson instead of Eric Gordon and PJ Tucker to the Cavs. This would be much more preferable for the Rockets because they couldn't play Ryan Anderson in the playoffs because he was such a defensive liability. If this version of the trade works out instead of sending Eric Gordon and PJ Tucker to the Cavs, I believe this team could easily, well, okay, maybe not easily, but I feel like they definitely have a greater chance of beating the Warriors than the other team. Now let's move on to the last wildcard team. Finally, we come to the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers have the most cap space of any team on this list with $75 million in guaranteed contracts next season. By getting rid of Thaddeus Young and Al Jefferson, the Pacers could lower their guaranteed contracts to $52 million, which would be half the salary cap, meaning they would have an extra $52 million in cap space to work with. Let's say they sign LeBron. Now they're looking at $17 million in cap. See, now the Pacers can really make things shake in free agency. The main prospects for trade would be Miles Turner, Domantas Sabonis, Corey Joseph, Darren Collison, and Bojan Bogdanovic. I can see the Pacers mostly focusing on trading Miles, Sabonis, and Corey Joseph, as Collison and Bogdanovic both shot over 40% from 3, but they can still be sacrificed if the price is right. If I'm the Pacers, I would target teams that haven't been able to get it done in the playoffs or teams that are looking to get younger. The trade partners I would mainly look at would be Toronto, Portland, and the Clippers. For the Clippers, I'll be looking to acquire Tobias Harris and Lou Williams in exchange for Miles Turner, Sabonis, Corey Joseph, and 2 first-round picks and multiple second-round picks if necessary. This is more or less unrealistic, depending on how much the Clippers will value having those draft picks and 2 young big men down low. For the Pacers, this would be a big trade because they're getting guaranteed scoring off the bench and another wing defender that shoots over 40% from 3 to put around LeBron. With Collison, Oladipo, Tobias Harris, and Bojan Bogdanovic on the team, LeBron will have 4 high percentage 3-point shooters and at least 1 player that can create for himself off the dribble in Oladipo. Besides the Clippers trade, we have the Trailblazers in Toronto. I'll keep it short with these 2. Miles Turner and Darren Collison, and 2 first-round picks for either CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard, or Kyle Lowry. This trade gives either the Raptors or the Blazers future first-round picks and another young big man that's on a cheap contract. Also, with Darren Collison on an expiring contract, they can easily move on to find another player in free agency next year. And since at this point the Pacers will still have an abundance of cap space, the salaries do not need to match up for the trade to happen. That being said, the Trailblazers most likely want to hand over one of Portland's bad contracts to Myers Leonard or Mo Harkless so they can hit the reset button and build around either CJ or Damian. Realistically though, CJ would be the one getting traded because Portland basically worships Damian Lillard. And if this trade were to go down, CJ would most likely be playing point guard for the Pacers. I personally like this trade because CJ is younger than Kyle Lowry and Damian Lillard, and he has experience being the second option. But as I've said with all the other teams, the main point in creating a team around LeBron at his point is to take pressure off him. It is the onus of the coach to design and tweak their system into an equal opportunity offense, meaning players are working for the best shot, not just getting theirs or trying to be a hero. But personally, out of the Pacers trades, I prefer the Clippers one. Having Tobias Harris as a defender and running Lou Williams off the bench guarantees that the bench unit won't have a problem scoring. At that point, you can just surround the bench unit with more defensive-minded players to make sure that there is any imbalance between both units. Let's keep it funky though. LeBron probably won't sign with any of these teams outside of Houston. It's possible because nobody knows what LeBron's going to do in free agency, but it's not probable. The only other teams I can see him going to are the 76ers, the Lakers, and then there's a slim chance he re-signs with the Cavs. But the cap for the Cavs is so non-existent, Kobe Altman would have to sell his soul to get rid of those contracts and bring in better players. If you want to hear me go over why other teams can't sign LeBron and why the Lakers, 76ers, and Cavs are really the only other options, check out my other video in the upper right hand corner of this video. Other than that, y'all have a good day. I'm out. Peace.